Welcome to Mystic Realms Recap. Please like, share, and subscribe. Enjoy today's episode.
At dawn the next day, Duan Ling Tian went to Paladin Academy as usual. Everything seemed extremely calm. But Duan Ling Tian knew that all of this was only the calm before the storm. Presently, there was an unknown amount of undercurrents flowing towards him in secret. At noon, Duan Ling Tian ate at the cafeteria with Xiao Yu and the others as usual. Suddenly, a higher-grade student walked over swiftly from afar and passed an invitation to Duan Ling Tian. Duan Ling Tian, the third prince, will hold a banquet for the young talents of the imperial city at his estate 10 days from now. This is the invitation he ordered me to pass to you. He didn't wait for Duan Ling Tian's reply. He put down the invitation before turning around and leaving the moment he finished speaking. Third prince? Duan Ling Tian opened the invitation, and on it were just some polite greetings. The affixed signatures was Chu Yang. Duan Ling Tian had heard before that within the Crimson Sky Kingdom's imperial family, the surname Chu was the most respected. Haha. Duan Ling Tian, the third prince, is known as one who has a passion for talented individuals. Every single one of the young talents that were invited by him were dragons among men. This time he's probably taken a fancy towards you. Xiao Sun laughed heartily. Duan Ling Tian put away the invitation and curiously asked, "What sort of person is this third prince?" The invitation was personally written by third prince Chu Yang, and its tone was extremely casual. It didn't contain one bit of a condescending tone, and it was more akin to treating Duan Ling Tian as an equal. As far as Duan Ling Tian was concerned, this was extremely difficult to come by. The third prince is famous in the imperial city for being easygoing. He has one of the highest public voices among the crown princes, Xiao Yu slowly said. In the past few years, His Majesty the Emperor has grown old with age and has been constantly bedridden, and it is precisely the moment for the substitution of the Emperor. All of the crown princes, including the third prince, secretly compete with each other. Duan Ling Tian, you have to consider carefully before going to the banquet of the third prince 10 days from now, because if you go, you'll become a thorn in the eyes of the other princes. The fifth prince is among them. The fifth prince is one of the top candidates for the title of emperor, so if you side with the third prince, then even if the fifth prince knows that you're a direct descendant of the Duan clan, it's likely that he would still openly offend you. Your natural talent is too shocking, so he would probably see you as a potential threat and would kill you before you have the chance to grow. Xiao Sun finished speaking in a single breath. According to him, Duan Ling Tian should casually find an excuse and not attend the banquet, as there were some matters that shouldn't be touched. Because once they were touched, they would attract a calamity to you. Even the three great clans of the imperial city wouldn't normally allow their direct descendants to be swept into the disputes and struggles for the title of emperor. Fifth prince. A trace of a smile appeared on the corners of Duan Ling Tian's mouth and a sharp light flashed within his eyes. I'm only attending a banquet, and he would need to kill me before I grow just for doing that? Duan Ling Tian, you can't really be thinking of attending the banquet, right? You have to think this through carefully. Xiao Su originally thought that Duan Ling Tian would accept his suggestion and not attend the banquet. But looking at Duan Ling Tian's intentions now, it would seem that he really planned to attend the banquet. Why shouldn't I go? Isn't it just a meal? Duan Ling Tian asked indifferently. Just a meal? The corners of Xiao Sun's mouth twitched, and he gave Xiao Yu a concealed gaze. But unfortunately, even when Xiao Yu tried, Duan Ling Tian only brushed off Xiao Yu's persuasions with a smile and paid no attention to it. For the entire afternoon, Duan Ling Tian sat cross-legged on a large tree at the side of the martial arts practice ground. He had consumed a origin-increasing pill and was quietly cultivating. As long as he had free time, he would practically dedicate it all to cultivation, as what he wanted to do now was allow his cultivation to break through to the origin core stage as fast as possible. Once he breaks through to the origin core stage, he will be able to become a grade 8 alchemist and refine a grade 8 spirit cleansing pill, which will allow Xiong Quan's cultivation to recover to the void prying stage. At that time, the difficulties he was currently facing would be solved easily with the edge of a blade. Unknowingly, dusk fell upon the lands. Duan Ling Tian came back to his senses before jumping off the large tree and leaving Paladin Academy with Xiao Yu and Xiao Sun. It's the Divine Might Marquis Estate's carriage. Xiao Sun's sharp gaze recognized the carriage that was parked before Paladin Academy's gates. There were two other people who rode Fergana horses standing beside the carriage. One of them was a middle-aged soldier in light armor, and beside him was a young man in casual clothing. The young man was around the age of 20, and he had a Paladin Academy student badge on his waist. When he noticed Duanling Tian walk out of Paladin Academy, he said something to the middle-aged soldier. "Father, that violet-clothed youth is Duanling Tian." Duanling Tian had only just exited Paladin Academy's front gate when he noticed the two people beside the Divine Might Marquis Estate's carriage spur their horses towards him. After a short moment, the two of them got off their horses. The middle-aged soldier nodded to Duanling Tian before politely saying, "May I inquire if you're young Master Ling Tian?" "You are." Duanling Tian had a face full of questions, as he didn't recognize this person. "I'm Peng Wu, the Vice General under the command of Grand General Nye. This is my son, Peng Rue. I've come here today on the orders of the Grand General to invite young Master Ling Tian to get together at the Divine Might Marquis Estate," Peng Wu said respectfully. He didn't have even a trace of looking down upon Duanling Tian for his young age. "Is the Grand General you speak of the current Divine Might Marquis, Nye Yuan?" Duanling Tian's brows knitted as he asked curiously. "Exactly." Peng Wu hurriedly nodded. Duanling Tian's heart jerked. Could it be that Divine Might Marquis Nye Yuan knew of his true identity? Wait, no. Logically speaking, his art of disguising was airtight. Then what could it be? Duanling Tian carried a trace of doubt as he bid his farewells to Xiao Sun and Xiao Yu before getting on the Divine Might Marquis Estate's carriage. "Vice General Peng Wu, do you know why the Divine Might Marquis wants to talk to me?" Duanling Tian pulled open the carriage's curtain and asked Peng Wu, who was outside. But unfortunately, even Peng Wu was unaware, as he was only under orders to bring Duanling Tian. Duanling Tian had a different feeling when he once again arrived at the Divine Might Marquis Estate, as this time he arrived at the Divine Might Marquis Estate with his real appearance. Duanling Tian once again met Divine Might Marquis Nye Yuan within the audience hall of the Divine Might Marquis Estate. You're the son of my brother Ru Feng, Duanling Tian?" Duanling Tian noticed that Nye Yuan was extremely excited when he saw him. Duanling Tian's heart trembled as he thought about what Nye Yuan had said. Could it be that this Divine Might Marquis Nye Yuan had an unordinary relationship with his deadbeat father? "Greetings, Marquis." Duanling Tian lightly nodded to Nye Yuan. This could be considered his way of bowing and paying his respects. Nye Yuan didn't mind Duanling Tian's lack of respect one bit. He swiftly walked up to Duanling Tian. Then he extended his hands to grab onto Duanling Tian's shoulders and gave them a pat before laughing heartily. "Ru Feng has a good son. Ru Feng has such a good son." Nye Yuan's laughter was filled with relief and not 1 ounce of fakeness. Duanling Tian's heart felt warm. It looked like his deadbeat father had quite a relationship with the Divine Might Marquis. "Marquis, you were friends with my father?" Duanling Tian had a questioning expression. "Come, have a seat. I'll tell you slowly." Nye Yuan led Duanling Tian to sit with him at the side before telling Duanling Tian about his past with Duan Rufeng with a face full of smiles. As Nye Yuan spoke, he had an extremely joyous expression. He seemed to become younger as he spoke. Slowly, Duanling Tian came to an understanding. So his deadbeat father was best friends with Nye Yuan. The two of them had entered Paladin Academy as students during the same year, and went from being opponents to getting to know each other. Then they finally became best friends and best brothers. "If it wasn't for me going out to war that year, I wouldn't have allowed you and your mother to travel off to distant parts. Now that we speak of it, this matter is all my fault and I feel guilty to Brother Ru Feng," Nye Yuan said guiltily. "Marquis, this has nothing to do with you, so you don't have to blame yourself." Duanling Tian shook his head with a smile. He could feel how Nye Yuan was genuinely concerned for him. "Little Tian, you don't have to be courteous in front of me. When your father was still around, we called each other brothers. So in the future you can call me Uncle Nye," Nye Yuan said, with eyes that had a trace of doting within. "Uncle Nye." Duanling Tian nodded with a smile. as he had heartfelt admiration for Nye Yuan. That deadbeat father of his had vanished for so many years, so the fact that Nye Yuan was still able to love him to such an extent was truly difficult to believe. "Father, I heard Ling Tian has come?" Just at this moment, a young man slowly walked in from outside the audience hall. His voice was mixed with a trace of pleasant surprise. It was precisely the son of Nye Yuan, Nye Fon. "Little Tian, this is my son, Nye Fon. Now that I mention it, he even carried you when you were still a baby," Nye Yuan introduced. As expected of the child of Uncle Ru Feng and Aunt Ro, his appearance is handsome and extraordinary, and he is slightly similar to Uncle Ru Feng from those years. Nye Fon couldn't help but praise Duan Ling Tian when he saw him. "Big brother Nye, you're too kind." Even with Duan Ling Tian's thick skin, he couldn't help but feel his face grow hot. Nye Feng said, with a smile, "Little Tian, when father heard of the news about you yesterday, he still didn't dare believe it. After it was confirmed, he sent Uncle Pang to bring you over right away." He couldn't help but sigh in surprise at what Duan Ling Tian did within the Paladin Academy yesterday. A mere youth at the age of 18 had a cultivation that had actually stepped into the 9th level of the core formation stage. As for the matter of Duan Ling Tian killing Duan Ling Xing, he didn't pay much attention to it, as Duan Ling Xing was nothing in his opinion. "Ru Feng would surely be extremely gratified if he knew he had a son like you." Nye Yuan, the dignified and imposing Grand General, completely expressed the amiableness of an elder in front of Duan Ling Tian. "I can hear your voices from far in the distance. Is this the son of Ru Feng?" Suddenly, an aged figure walked into the audience hall from outside. Duan Ling Tian glanced over to see that person who had entered was precisely the senior marquis. The senior marquis was stunned when his gaze landed on Duan Ling Tian. "You." A bitter smile appeared on the corners of Duan Ling Tian's mouth, as he knew that the old man had recognized him. More accurately speaking, the old man recognized that he was precisely the Ling Tian that refined the poison-curing medicinal pill the other day. Although the old man's origin energy was suppressed by the dark nether minx poison, his void-prying stage expert's spiritual sense was still present within him, and by relying on his acute senses, he was naturally able to discern his aura to be exactly the same as the Ling Tian's from the other day. "Father, what is it?" Nye Yuan had a face full of questions when he saw the old man's expression. Nye Fon looked at his grandfather as well, as he noticed that the atmosphere seemed off. "Are you going to do it, or shall I?" The old man glanced at Duan Ling Tian with a profound expression. The corners of his mouth held a smile. It was as if he was controlling everything with his own 2 hands. Nye Yuan and his son were even more curious, as they wondered what mystery were Duan Ling Tian and the old man speaking about. "Senior Marquis, why don't you do it?" Duan Ling Tian was quite embarrassed for being exposed by a sly old fox like him. "If it wasn't for my senses that far surpass the ordinary person's, I'm afraid even I wouldn't have been able to notice. Needless to say, your methods of disguise are truly brilliant, Brother Ling Tian." The old man's eyes narrowed, and he lightly smiled as if he were speaking of some unimportant matter. "Brother Ling Tian? Disguise?" Nye Yuan and his son weren't stupid, so they instantly reacted. There was only one youth that could make the old man call him brother, and that was the mysterious youth, Ling Tian, that arrived at the Divine Might Marquis estate 2 months ago and refined the poison-curing medicinal pill for the old man. "Little Tian, the brother Ling Tian of that day, was actually you?" Nye Yuan also noticed that this nephew of his had physical traits and a voice that was similar to the violet-clothed youth with an ordinary appearance from the other day. Instantly, a shocked expression appeared on his face. "Is it really Brother Ling Tian?" Nye Yuan was stunned as well and was in slight disbelief. "Uncle Nye, Big Brother Nye, it's me. I didn't know of the relationship between Uncle Nye and my father before, and I hope you can forgive me for any offense it may have caused." Duan Ling Tian couldn't help but smile apologetically. It was really like the saying of when the flood rushed past the Dragon King's temple and their own family members didn't recognize each other. "Brother Ling Tian, what are you talking about? If it wasn't for you, this old life of mine would probably be unable to hold on for much longer." The old man shook his head and sighed with a complicated gaze. Never would he have imagined that the youth who refined the poison-curing medicinal pill for him was actually the son of his own son's best friend, Duan Ru Feng, from long ago. Senior Marquis, I'm not worthy of being called brother by you. Duan Ling Tian had a bitter smile on his face. It was fine before because he hadn't acknowledged the senior Marquis as a relative prior to this, but now that he knew of the relationship between Nye Yuan and his deadbeat father, he didn't dare be presumptuous anymore. If his mother were to know, she would certainly not let him off. Yes, father, little Tian is right. Nye Yuan returned to his senses and looked at Duan Ling Tian before laughing jubilantly. The shock this nephew of his brought to him came in unceasing waves. An 18-year-old 9th-level core formation martial artist. An 18-year-old grade 9 alchemist. No matter which halo floated above him, they were each sufficient to cause his name to shock the entire Crimson Sky Kingdom and cause everyone to look up to him. Moreover, both of these halos were now on this youth at the same time. Ru Feng, if you were still alive, you'd probably laugh yourself awake from your sleep, right? Nye Yuan sighed in his heart. Then I'll call you little Tian from now on, and you call me grandfather Nye. How about it? The old man smiled as he looked at Duan Ling Tian. Grandfather Nye. Duan Ling Tian heaved a sigh of relief and smiled at the old man. Nye Fan stood at the side and gazed at Duan Ling Tian, unable to come back to his senses. The shock Duan Ling Tian gave him was too huge. Under the invitation of the Marquis family, Duan Ling Tian stayed at the Divine Might Marquis estate to have a meal. Little Tian, is your mother in the Imperial City as well? Nye Yuan asked. Yes. Duan Ling Tian nodded. Have you all returned to the Duan clan? Nye Yuan seemed to have thought of something as he asked this. No. Duan Ling Tian shook his head. Then you too. Nye Yuan was dazed. I bought a courtyard house in the inner city, and our family is staying there. Duan Ling Tian said, with a smile. You killed Duan Ling Xing and revealed a strength at the 9th level of the core formation stage. With your current natural talent, the Duan clan should have sent someone to invite you back, right? Nye Yuan's gaze flickered, as he was extremely knowledgeable about the way those large clans worked. The natural talent that Duan Ling Tian exhibited was sufficient for the Duan clan to get off their high horse and rope him in. Uncle Nye, you predict like a prophet. The Duan clan did indeed send someone to be an emissary, but I refused. Duan Ling Tian spoke in an extremely casual manner, and there was no fluctuation in his mood when he spoke of how he refused the Duan clan. It's good that you refused them, because that Duan clan actually forced a widowed mother and her son to leave. Now let them go regret it. Nye Yuan didn't have a favorable impression of the Duan clan. My Divine Might Marquis estate isn't small. Why don't you and your mother move in? There aren't many people within the Imperial City that would dare act rashly here. As he finished speaking, Nye Yuan had a face full of confidence. Uncle Nye, I've gotten used to my own courtyard house, and I don't want to trouble you. Duan Ling Tian shook his head and smiled as he politely refused Nye Yuan's good intention. Little Tian, you killed Duan Ling Xing, so Duan Ru Lei won't let it go so easily. Are you and your mother safe at that courtyard house? Do you need me to send people to protect you? Nye Yuan was slightly worried. Don't worry, Uncle Nye. They aren't capable of finding that house. Meanwhile, Duan Ling Tian had finished eating his fill and stood up. Uncle Nye, thank you for the dinner. It's time for me to return home now. Otherwise, my mother will be worried. I'll send you out. Nye Yuan stood up as well and sent Duan Ling Tian out of the Divine Might Marquis estate with Nye Fan. The guard soldiers outside the Divine Might Marquis estate's main gate couldn't help their pupils from constricting. Who the heck was this youth? He's actually able to make the Marquis and his son personally send him out? Uncle Nye, Big Brother Nye, I'll be leaving now. Duan Ling Tian bid his farewells to the two before his body moved out like a spirit serpent, scurrying into the end of the road before disappearing. Father, never had I imagined that Uncle Ru Feng's son would be even more heaven-defying than him. Only when Duan Ling Tian's figure disappeared before him did Nye Fan sigh. An 18-year-old 9th-level core formation martial artist and a grade 9 alchemist. Moreover, His disposition is even more tenacious than Brother Ru Feng's all those years ago. And most important of all, after knowing of the relationship between his father and I, he seemed wanting to avoid any ill will by being unwilling to accept my help, as if he was deeply afraid of owing me a favor. Nye Yuan laughed bitterly. This child, these years have really been tough on him. Favor? Nye Fon's face froze for a moment. He's helped grandfather cured his poison, so it seems we owe him more, right? Duanling Tian made a few circles within the inner city, and only after he was sure that no one was following him did he return home. He still sighed slightly with emotion as he recalled what happened today. He still had the heart to use the Divine Might Marquis estate in the past, but now that he knew of the relationship between his deadbeat father and the Divine Might Marquis, he instead dispersed all thoughts of using the Divine Might Marquis estate. Although most of the difficulties he currently faced would be easily solved with the edge of a blade, once he obtained the backing of the Divine Might Marquis estate, he wasn't willing to have it that way. His gaze wasn't limited to this tiny Crimson Sky Kingdom, and in the future he would leave the Crimson Sky Kingdom to head to a much vaster world. At that time, it would be impossible for him to have an existence like the Divine Might Marquis estate to rely upon. So he now took all the difficulties he faced and made them a test for himself. He would rely on himself to deal with everything, and not gain help from another. Only when he himself was strong would he be truly strong. Of course, Duanling Tian wasn't a headstrong person, and if he really needed to use his trump card, the Divine Might Marquis estate, he would use it suitably. Duanling Tian had only just returned when the three beauties in his home came to greet him with faces filled with worry. His mother was the first to question him. Tian, why are you home so late today? Duanling Tian lightly smiled. Mom, I was asked to dinner by Uncle Nye. Uncle Nye? Li Ro didn't react for a moment. The Divine Might Marquis of the Divine Might Marquis estate, Nye Yuan, Duanling Tian said. Big brother Nye Yuan? Li Ro was shocked, then a light smile appeared on her face. So many years have passed, and he's already inherited the title of Divine Might Marquis. It's great that he had the heart to invite you over the moment he heard of you. Even Li Ro knew that this son of hers was now someone whose name had spread throughout the entire Crimson Sky Kingdom's imperial city, to the extent it could be said that there wasn't a single soul that didn't know of him. The following 10 days went by peacefully. Besides the Duan clan sending people to wait outside Paladin Academy to convince Duanling Tian with countless promises, and then being repeatedly refused by Duanling Tian. Duanling Tian didn't encounter any special occasion during these 10 days. The Duan clan's second master, Duan Rulei, and the fifth prince of the imperial family seemed to have completely disappeared within a day. At dusk, after bidding his farewells to Xiao Yu and Xiao Sun, Duanling Tian didn't return home but instead walked towards the S estate. He withdrew the invitation that they ordered someone to send to him and stuffed it into his pocket. As he passed by a small alley, suddenly, hiss hiss, hiss hiss, two small heads protruded out of Duanling Tian's long sleeve. They were a little black python and a little white python. They were currently flicking their tongues as they moved their eyes to stare at Duanling Tian, and the gold and silver horns on their heads gleamed with a light luster. You two little fellows, be obedient. Duanling Tian put the two little pythons back into his sleeve before continuing forward. For safety's sake, he especially brought Little White along when he left home today. Thus, it was equivalent to him having two fourth-level nascent soul bodyguards. Moreover, with Little White's and Little Black's speed and tiny size, even a fifth-level nascent soul martial artist would die at their hands if that martial artist was slightly careless. Although vast, the S estate seemed simple and unadorned from the outside. The S estate was already nearby when, "Go!" a loud shout echoed out from afar, followed by a deafening wave of horse hooves hitting the ground. Duanling Tian looked over, and what he saw was a blue-clothed young man whipping his Fergana horse as it flew over. Its destination was the S estate as well. Duanling Tian's face sank, as he noticed that when this person noticed him, the person not only didn't slow down, he instead fiercely whipped the Fergana horse to charge straight towards Duanling Tian. Faced with the Fergana horse that was violently dashing towards him, Duan Ling Tian's gaze went cold and he clenched his right hand tightly. The muscles on his hand slightly bulged. If the person were to really spur his horse to collide with Duan Ling Tian, then Duan Ling Tian wouldn't mind blasting the person and his horse flying. The Fergana horse moved closer. It was only a few meters away from Duan Ling Tian now. Nay, the young man on the Fergana horse instantly tightened the reins on his horse, and the Fergana horse stopped a meter away from Duan Ling Tian. The young man arrogantly swept Duan Ling Tian with his gaze and said, in a condescending tone, "Kid, you're quite brave. Your luck is good. If it wasn't for this being the gate of the third prince's estate, you would have been knocked flying by my crimson blood by now and would surely be dead." Crimson blood was precisely the name the young man called the Fergana horse he sat upon. The meaning behind the young man's speech was none other than saying he had to be considerate because this was the third prince's estate gate. Otherwise, Duan Ling Tian would have been knocked to death by him. Duan Ling Tian looked the young man in the eye with a tranquil gaze, and the corners of his mouth curled into a trace of a light smile. Your luck isn't bad either. When the young man's gaze emitted a puzzled expression, Duan Ling Tian turned around and walked towards the third prince's estate's gate. Just like he had said, the young man's luck was indeed not bad. If the young hadn't stopped earlier, he would have been blasted flying along with his horse. This bit of confidence was something Duan Ling Tian possessed without a doubt. Lowly commoner, the young man grunted coldly, before spurring his horse to pass Duan Ling Tian and arrive at the gate of the third prince's estate before Duan Ling Tian. The young man got off his horse and passed his horse's reins to one of the house servants of the third prince's estate. Then he handed over his invitation to the middle-aged man who looked like a manager. Under the middle-aged manager's orders, another house servant walked into the estate with the young man, leading the way for the young man. "Guest, please present your invitation." Meanwhile, Duan Ling Tian arrived before the third prince's estate's gate. The middle-aged manager had a smile on his face, as he didn't dare look down upon Duan Ling Tian. The young man who had already entered the estate turned around and saw that it was that violet-clothed youth again, and he couldn't help but mock him. "Kid, the third prince's estate isn't a place that just anyone has the qualifications to enter. If you don't have an invitation, you should have **k off, go home, and drink milk." Duan Ling Tian's brows knitted and his eyes emitted a slight sense of fury from this person's repeated provocations. Did he really think that Duan Ling Tian was easy to bully? The corners of Duan Ling Tian's mouth curled into a sneer as he watched the young man swagger off and disappear before him. Then he moved his hand into his pocket and removed the invitation. "Duan Ling Tian? So you're young Master Ling Tian." The middle-aged manager's eyes lit up when he saw the invitation. He now had a face full of humbleness and reverence. The third prince had left word that if this youth were to come, he must entertain him with the highest level of courtesy, so he didn't dare be discourteous in any way. "Young Master Ling Tian, please come in." The middle-aged manager took a deep breath before personally leading Duan Ling Tian in. Duan Ling Tian lightly nodded his head before following behind the middle-aged manager and walking into the third prince's estate. He's Duan Ling Tian? Only that Duan Ling Tian, who shot to fame, would be able to make the manager personally lead the way. The young man that entered earlier seemed to be the number one of the Su clan's branch descendants, Su Lan, right? He seemed to be mocking Duan Ling Tian earlier. Although that Su Lan's strength isn't weak, in terms of natural talent, there's no way he can compare to Duan Ling Tian. The house servants whispered in discussion. On his way, Duan Ling Tian noticed that the third prince was probably someone that knew how to enjoy life, as the entire vast estate was filled with rare flowers and exotic herbs, and some of them were even rare medicinal materials. Before long, under the lead of the middle-aged manager, Duan Ling Tian arrived at a spacious, man-made lake within the inner courtyard. As the sky slowly went dark, the building that stood in the middle of the man-made pool was lit brightly, and sounds of laughter would occasionally echo out from within. That place seemed to be bustling with noise and excitement. The Su clan's young master Su Lan has arrived. In next to no time, a sonorous voice sounded from the front. "Su Lan?" Duan Ling Tian's brows knitted. The young man that provoked him earlier outside the gates was actually a member of the Su clan? No wonder he was so arrogant. However, Shao Sun seemed to have mentioned before that the three great clans of the imperial city had always restrained their direct descendant disciples from taking part in the competition for the imperial authority. So with this in mind, Duanling Tian assumed that this Su Lan wasn't a direct descendant of the Su clan. Greetings, third prince. Greetings, Princess Bai Yao. Under the lead of the middle-aged manager, Duanling Tian had only just stepped on the wooden bridge that led to the building at the heart of the man-made lake when he heard Su Lan's humble and respectful voice. Princess Bai Yao? Duanling Tian was slightly surprised. He had been in the imperial city for a few months now, so he knew of many things about the imperial city in detail. Princess Bai Yao was the daughter that the current emperor doted on the most, and she was publicly acknowledged as the #1 beauty in the imperial city. The #1 beauty in the imperial city. I wonder how she compares to my Ku-Er and Little Fei. Curiosity arose within Duanling Tian's heart. Ku-Er or Li Fei were both the most beautiful women he had seen since arriving on this world. Among the women he'd seen, only the Shao clan's Shao Lan, Shao Yu's angelic beauty of a sister, could compare to Ku-Er and Li Fei. Besides her, Duanling Tian hadn't seen a single woman who could be compared to Ku-Er and Li Fei. The middle-aged manager walked in with steady steps as he brought Duanling Tian to the building at the heart of the lake before respectfully saying, "Your Highness, young Master Ling Tian has arrived." Instantly, the gaze of the young man who sat at the head of the building in the heart of the lake abruptly shone. Meanwhile, Duanling Tian had just walked into the building. He saw an amiable young man in gold robes sitting at the head. The youth was around the age of 25 or 26 and had an imposing disposition between his brows, completely inheriting the dignified appearance of an imperial family disciple. Third Prince. Duanling Tian guessed the identity of this person and lightly nodded with a smile. It could be considered as having paid his respects. Just at this moment, the brows of the old man behind the golden-robed young man knitted, and he shouted, in a fierce voice, "Outrageous!" The terrifying sound echoed out by using the method of condensing origin energy into sound, and it directly pierced Duanling Tian's eardrums. Duanling Tian's powerful spiritual force instantly dissolved this sound, so he remained unfazed as he calmly swept the old man with his gaze. He then looked at the young girl that was sitting to the right of the third prince. The young girl's age was similar to his, around the age of 18. She had bright eyes, a pretty appearance, and an extraordinary disposition. Those were accompanied by a head full of shoulder-length, beautiful hair that fell behind her like a waterfall, a pair of pretty cheeks that would cause anyone who took a glance at them to be unable to stop themselves from feeling protective of her, and cherry lips that caused others to have the desire to kiss and suck on them for a while. In terms of appearance, this young girl was not one bit inferior to Ku-Er and Li Fei. As expected of the #1 beauty in the imperial city, her appearance is more than enough to rival my Ku-Er and Little Fei. Duanling Tian returned to his senses quickly, and he lightly smiled at the young girl. Princess Bai Yao. From Duanling Tian greeting the third prince, to the old man's fierce shout, then to him paying his respects to Princess Bai Yao, all of this happened in the blink of an eye. The old man's eyes emitted a surprised and bewildered expression. A mere 9th-level core formation martial artist was actually able to withstand his move using origin energy condensed into sound. It caused him to feel slight disbelief. Haha. The third prince laughed heartily. I've heard of Brother Ling Tian's great name. Now that I've met you, I can see that you're really worthy of such a name. I originally thought that Brother Ling Tian would not pay any attention to my invitation, and I didn't think that Brother Ling Tian would really come. This is truly a pleasant surprise. Duanling Tian lightly smiled. Third Prince, you're too kind. I'm only an ordinary person, and it's an honor to be invited by Third Prince. Brother Ling Tian is neither haughty nor humble at such an age. That's truly hard to come by. Brother Ling Tian, please sit. The third prince abruptly stood and directed Duanling Tian to the seat on the left of the head. This seat was obviously intentionally left empty. Thank you, third prince. Duanling Tian didn't try to be courteous and directly sat there. Meanwhile, burning gazes from the seats below descended onto Duanling Tian one by one. The owners of these gazes were basically all 20 to 25-year-old young men with arrogant gazes, and looking at their clothes and disposition, they were obviously individuals of extraordinary birth. They were originally curious about why the third prince would intentionally prepare a seat beside him and who he was leaving the seat for. Now they finally understood that it was left for this youth, whose name had recently shot to fame in the imperial city. On one side of the third prince was Princess Bai Yao, and on the other was Duanling Tian. No one would say anything of Princess Bai Yao being seated there, but Duanling Tian. Presently, many of the young talents had gazes that emitted discontent. Of course, they didn't dare point their discontent towards the third prince, and thus extremely unfriendly gazes descended upon Duanling Tian. Duanling Tian was obviously able to notice these gazes, but he paid no attention to them. His gaze descended upon Su Lan, who was far in the distance. At this moment, Su Lan's gaze was slightly unnatural, as he never imagined that the violet-clothed youth he encountered outside the third prince's estate gate was actually the Duanling Tian, whose name had spread and gave rise to much discussion within the imperial city. However, when he remembered of a matter he had heard about 2 days ago, his heart calmed, and his fierce gaze fearlessly met with Duanling Tian's. "So you're that Duanling Tian. I heard that the Duan clan repeatedly invited you back, but were refused by you. No wonder you don't even have a proper horse and can only walk to the third prince's estate." Su Lan's brows raised as he looked at Duanling Tian and spoke with a mocking tone. The third prince attaching such importance to Duanling Tian caused him to feel unhappy in his heart as well, but now it seemed like he had found a way to vent. "I've heard of this as well. I was wondering why a direct descendant of the Duan clan would attend the third prince's banquet, so it turned out to be someone who had left the Duan clan on their own accord. Brother Ling Tian, nice courage." The eyes of the blue-clothed youth that was sitting opposite of Su Lan narrowed into a line, and although he called Duanling Tian brother, the mocking intention in his words was something that anyone present could discern. The deeds of Duanling Tian were spread and discussed animatedly throughout the imperial city lately, so the young talents present had more or less heard of him. If Duanling Tian was still a direct descendant disciple of the Duan clan, they might have been slightly afraid. However, Duanling Tian refused to return to the Duan clan. Without the Duan clan's backing, even if his natural talent were even better, even though he had stepped into the 9th level of the core formation stage at the age of 18. So what? The Crimson Sky Kingdom never lacked geniuses. However, the genius that were able to truly, smoothly mature were very few. When Duanling Tian had only just appeared, Princess Bai Yao's water-like, beautiful eyes were extremely calm as they gazed at Duanling Tian, but now they had ripples within. This youth was completely different from those people she usually saw. When faced with the mockery of others, he was still able to stay aloof from the matter and be indifferent. It was difficult to imagine how a youth would actually have such terrifying mental strength. "Young Master Duan, Bai Yao has heard of your deeds, and I deeply admire you. Bai Yao will use this tea as wine to toast you." Eventually, Princess Bai Yao spoke, and her clear voice suppressed the mocking voices of the crowd of young talents. Duanling Tian's gaze slightly flickered, as he noticed that this Princess Bai Yao was helping him. Presently, even the host, the third prince, was looking on coldly from the side and didn't speak up. This Princess Bai Yao is truly pure. It's really rare that she's able to maintain this heart of hers in the imperial family that is full of mutual deception. Duanling Tian thought in his heart, before raising his wine cup and nodding to Princess Bai Yao. After finishing the wine in his glass with a single gulp, Duanling Tian laughed in a carefree manner. "I heard that Princess Bai Yao was the #1 beauty in the imperial city. Now that I've met you, I see that you're truly deserving of your reputation. I wonder who will be lucky enough to take Princess Bai Yao as his bride in the future. It would absolutely be the fortune that that person accumulated for a lifetime." "Young Master Duan, you jest?" Even Princess Bai Yao, who was accustomed to hearing flattery, couldn't prevent her face from blushing, and her heartbeat increased a little bit. The young talents present looked at the Duanling Tian with even more envious gazes when they noticed Duanling Tian and Princess Bai Yao chatting and laughing happily as if no one else was present. "I raise my cup in toast to everyone who granted me the favor of their presence in my banquet today." The third prince, who had never spoken and maintained silence as he waited for events to unfold, noticed the atmosphere turning slightly off, so he raised his wine cup to break the atmosphere that was filled with sour envy. The corners of Duanling Tian's mouth raised as they curled into a light angle. As expected, the third prince was no simple figure. Duanling Tian was suspicious that the third prince intended on probing him from the moment he asked him to sit on that seat. However, he wasn't able to fully wrap his head around the matter. If the third prince was really probing him, then what was the point of doing this? Duanling Tian lightly shook his head and decided not to think about it anymore, as he only came here to have a free meal. What did everything else have to do with him? As long as these people didn't go overboard, he would only take it as a group of mad dogs barking. If they were to go overboard, then he wouldn't be someone that was easy to offend. As he thought up to this point, Duanling Tian's calm gaze flashed with a strand of dense, cold light. During the banquet, most of the young talents present were mostly trying to strike a conversation with Princess Bai Yao. As far as they were concerned, if they were able to obtain her, they would be able to move up rapidly in the world and soar into the sky in one go. After all, Princess Bai Yao was the daughter that the current emperor doted on the most, so if one of them were to become the emperor's son-in-law, then it would also mean that they'd have to struggle for 30 years less. Only Duanling Tian drank and ate by himself, as the way the group of young talents acted was no different than a circus to him. The surprise in the third prince's eyes grew even stronger, as he noticed that this Duanling Tian was even more unfathomable than he'd imagined. He originally thought that even if Duanling Tian's natural talent in the martial Tao was high, a mere youth would be lacking in life experiences and thus could be used. However, he now realized that this youth's wisdom surpassed any one of these other young talents' wisdom. Even he was slightly unable to see through this youth, and he suddenly felt that it would be practically impossible for him to control this youth. Brother Ling Tian, the third prince abruptly spoke, and a stream of wisdom flashed within his eyes. The entire building at the heart of the pond went silent the moment the third prince spoke. Even the group of young talents that was showing off their elegant demeanor to their heart's content in front of Princess Bai Yao had now restrained themselves, and their gazes once again descended upon Duanling Tian. Duanling Tian originally thought that he could eat and drink in peace before leaving without a care, but when he noticed the smile in the corners of the third prince's mouth, his heart jerked and he suddenly had a bad premonition. As expected, the third prince gazed at Duanling Tian and lightly smiled. As a matter of fact, this sister of mine is at the age of marriage. The person she admires the most in her life is your father, the peerless genius, Duan Rufeng, whose name previously spread across the Crimson Sky Kingdom. She even saw him as her idol. She even once said that if she were to marry in this life, then it would surely be to a figure of shocking talent like Duan Rufeng. In my opinion, the elegant demeanor that Brother Ling Tian revealed now even surpasses that of your father years ago. The third prince's speech seemed to point to something as he glanced at Duanling Tian with a dubious gaze. Third brother, what nonsense are you speaking of? Princess Bai Yao's face froze, as she was completely stunned. When had she ever said something like this? Before long, she noticed that the young talents present now looked at Duanling Tian with gazes filled with a sense of hostility. She was intelligent, so she immediately understood her third brother's intentions. She was slightly enraged within her heart, but in the end, she didn't say anything due to being hindered by the familial bonds of brother and sister. A bitter smile appeared on the corners of her mouth when she noticed Duanling Tian looking at her with a questioning gaze, and she lightly shook her head. When Duanling Tian looked at Princess Bai Yao, he noticed innocence from within Princess Bai Yao's gaze, and at the same time he could feel her helplessness. He instantly understood the intentions of the third prince, and he couldn't help but sneer in his heart. This third prince is easy to get along with? For the first time, disgust towards the third prince arose within his heart. However, he didn't say anything and instead was fearless towards those envious gazes that descended onto him. He looked at the third prince and smiled lightly. If that's the case, then I hope third prince can slightly help your sister and I. Allow me to accompany her on a stroll around the lake. How about it? The third prince's face froze. Never had he imagined that this Duanling Tian's face was so thick that he would actually follow the flow and use it as an opportunity to gain an advantage. Just when he was at a loss for words, Su Lan's face went grim. Duanling Tian, who do you think you are? Actually daring to be so presumptuous in front of third prince? He shouted in a low voice, as if wanting to show off before the third prince and princess by Yao. Duanling Tian's brows knitted as his gaze descended upon Su Lan, and he indifferently asked, "You're called Su Lan, right?" "Exactly, I'm Su Lan." Su Lan held his head high with a face full of arrogance. "Su Lan, you ask who I think I am, but I wonder who do you think you are? I'm speaking to third prince, and even third prince hasn't said anything. But you are here being presumptuous and usurping his role as host? Looks like you think nothing of the third prince." The corners of Duanling Tian's mouth curled into a slightly evil smile. His voice slowly grew louder, and as he finished, it was filled with awe-inspiring righteousness. Instantly, Su Lan was scared to the point that his face went ghastly pale. "Third prince, I didn't have that intention." Su Lan looked at third prince as he hurriedly explained. He seemed like a guilty person who had given himself away with a clumsy denial. When third prince glanced at Su Lan, his calm gaze had a sense of displeasure mixed within, but before long it recovered to his usual amiable appearance. Duanling Tian became vigilant, as this third prince was absolutely a wolf at heart, but innocent in appearance. This sort of person was a wolf in sheep's clothing and was extremely terrifying. "Brother Ling Tian, I naturally have no objections to what you said," third prince slowly said. Princess Bai Yao's heartbeat abruptly increased when she heard what third prince said, and she snuck a peek at Duanling Tian. A tiny bit of rosy red had appeared on her pretty face. Am I really going to take a stroll around the lake with him? However, Duanling Tian's gaze on third prince had never once changed, because he discerned from third prince's gaze that he wouldn't agree so easily. As expected, third prince's gaze then descended upon the other young talents that were present. However, that would be unfair to the others that are present here. How about this? The strong are respected within the Crimson Sky Kingdom, and most of the young talents present here are at the top of the 9th level of the core formation stage. Brother Ling Tian, if you can defeat them and make them be sincerely convinced, then I'm sure they wouldn't have any objections. Everyone, what do all of you think? Third Prince's gaze descended onto Duanling Tian for a moment before moving to the crowd of people. Third Prince is wise. Precisely. Instantly, the young talents rubbed their palms and fists together, emitting a bearing that showed they wanted to show off in front of Princess Bai Yao and Third Prince. Third Prince, although we are all similarly at the 9th level of the core formation stage like Duanling Tian, he possesses a grade 7 spirit weapon. If he were to rely on the might of his spirit weapon, it would be like winning without relying on his own strength. Some astute individuals couldn't help but voice out. According to the rumors, the only reason Duanling Tian was able to kill Duanling Xing, who was at the same cultivation level as him, was by relying on the grade 7 spirit weapon in his possession. This point was something that was no secret within the imperial city. Noticing the third prince looking over, the corners of Duanling Tian's mouth curled into a smile. Then I won't use a spirit weapon. Brother Ling Tian is outright as expected. How about this? Anyone who battles Brother Ling Tian is prohibited from using any form or source of external strength. The third prince laughed heartily, and a trace of a scheme succeeding flashed within his eyes. Everyone present, including him, didn't think that Duanling Tian would be capable of suppressing all of the other 9th level core formation martial artists without using his grade 7 spirit weapon, because ordinarily speaking, martial artists at the same level of cultivation had the same amount of strength. The only difference was the stage of their martial skills. The party with the martial skill at a higher level would be the party that occupied the advantageous position. The young talents that he invited to this banquet were practically all 20 to 25-year-old genius martial artists who had cultivated their martial skills for many years. In terms of martial skills, they would absolutely be not inferior to Duanling Tian. Third brother. Princess Bai Yao had been tolerating it for so long, but when she saw Duanling Tian becoming the public enemy, of the young talents present here due to the third prince's intentional guidance. Her pretty face flushed for a moment, and she couldn't help herself from voicing out. Her tolerance had reached its limit. Bai Yao, don't worry, it's only a spar. Your sweetheart will be fine. Third prince lightly smiled. The expressions of the young talents present went grim when they heard this, and their eyes filled with cold lights when they noticed Princess Bai Yao being so worried about Duanling Tian. Sweetheart. Princess Bai Yao's face went red. Princess, it's just as third prince said. It's only a spar. You have nothing to worry about. Just when Princess Bai Yao was about to refute third prince, Duanling Tian spoke before her and stopped her actions. Princess Bai Yao's peerlessly beautiful face froze and lights flowed within her water-like clear eyes before her gaze that had a tiny bit of bewilderment gathered onto Duanling Tian. Duanling Tian nodded to Princess Bai Yao, and his mouth opened and closed as he mouthed something to her. Don't worry. This was what the Duanling Tian had mouthed to Princess Bai Yao. Princess Bai Yao's expression eased up slightly when she saw this. Then she sat back down on her seat. She was extremely curious about where this youth that was the same age as her had obtained such strong confidence. Whoosh! Duanling Tian was very straightforward. His body moved to descend upon an empty space in the building at the heart of the lake. Who's first? Duanling Tian's eyes narrowed as his gaze swept past every young talent that was present. Currently, these people were all anxious to have a try, and every one of them seemed like they wanted to step on Duanling Tian and rise up in ranks. I'll do it. Accompanied by a light shout, a green-clothed young man descended onto the empty space to face Duanling Tian. Duanling Tian's gaze focused and a trace of a smile appeared on the corners of his mouth, as the person who arrived was none other than Su Lan. Third Prince. Meanwhile, Su Lan looked at Third Prince and respectfully said, like the saying goes, accidents happen. Duanling Tian and I are both 9th level core formation martial artists, and we can only fight at full strength to decide a victor. If there were to be any casualties, then it would be something that's unavoidable. The Third Prince's gaze focused as he looked at Duanling Tian. Brother Ling Tian, what do you think? Duanling Tian smiled indifferently. I agree. Princess Bai Yao's face went grim when she heard what Third Prince said, but just when she was about to speak, she noticed Duanling Tian giving her another gaze that asked her to be at ease. Although she didn't speak anymore, a trace of worry appeared in her beautiful eyes. When she first laid eyes upon Duanling Tian, although Duanling Tian was handsome and extraordinary, she didn't have any reaction, as she had seen many handsome men. When she saw how Duanling Tian was still able to maintain his calm and confident smile when faced with the mocking of the group of young talents, she noticed that Duanling Tian's smile had infected her. It was as if it had plucked that string within her heart. This feeling was something she had never felt before. Now that she saw Duanling Tian in such dangerous circumstances, she was extremely worried for Duanling Tian. Duanling Tian, I'll kill you. The corners of Su Lan's mouth curled into a sneer as he looked at Duanling Tian, and his mouth opened and closed. Even though he didn't make a sound, Duanling Tian still clearly saw what he had mouthed. Kill me? Duanling Tian paid no attention to it. There were many people on this world that wanted to kill him, but wasn't he still alive and well now? The corners of Duanling Tian's mouth held a smile, and his eyes flashed with wisdom as he indifferently said, one must know one's limitations. His words were extremely abrupt, and only Su Lan was able to understand the meaning behind his words. Su Lan's face sank as he burst into rage. You're courting death. Instantly, Su Lan's eyes went cold and his body moved. He seemed to transform into a cheetah as he charged at Duanling Tian. Every step he took echoed out with the booming sound of his legs descending onto the ground, and it seemed as if a strong gale had blown past the area. 12 ancient mammoth silhouettes condensed into form above Su Lan. He exerted his full strength the moment he attacked. The movement technique Su Lan was currently executing was obviously a high-grade profound rank movement skill at the perfection stage, and his speed practically reached the limit of the 9th level of the core formation stage. Of course, this was only true if compared to ordinary 9th level core formation martial artists. Duanling Tian wasn't included in this scope. Third Prince sat at the head and watched this scene with a smile on his face. A dense, cold light flashed deep within his eyes. Although he had only met Duanling Tian for the first time, he felt a trace of threat within Duanling Tian. He had a sudden premonition that the existence of Duanling Tian would very likely become an obstacle for him to become emperor. So now he wished for nothing more than for Su Lan to kill Duanling Tian. Princess Baiyao clenched her fists tightly and didn't dare close her eyes. Her heartbeat quickened as well. At this very moment, only the violet-clothed youth that was standing there without moving was in her eyes. Swish! Su Lan arrived before Duanling Tian in the blink of an eye, and a sneer appeared on the corners of his mouth when he noticed that Duanling Tian hadn't made any movements. Great net palm. High-grade profound rank martial skill. Su Lan's palm opened wide, and his origin energy exploded forth. The entire sky was filled with palm images that whistled as they descended to envelop Duanling Tian. No! Seeing Su Lan's attack about to descend onto Duanling Tian, Princess Baiyao exclaimed and abruptly stood up. This Duanling Tian is really conceited. The same thought appeared in the hearts of many of the young talents presents, and a sneer appeared on the corners of their mouths. They all thought that Duanling Tian would die without a doubt. A trace of a smile bloomed on Third Prince's face. Su Lan's eyes emitted a sense of madness. As far as he was concerned, once his palm strike descended, this youth that made him feel hatred and envy would completely vanish from this world. Instantly, a sense of joy appeared on the corners of his mouth. In the nick of time, Duanling Tian's body slightly jerked as a strength close to 13 ancient mammoths exploded forth. However, there were only 12 ancient mammoth silhouettes above him. Greater teleportation. Duanling Tian circulated his defensive martial skill, and a layer of defensive chi barrier appeared on the surface of his body at the exact moment Su Lan's palm strike descended. Bang! Su Lan's palm strike descended only to land directly on Duanling Tian's defensive chi barrier. Ah! At almost the exact same instant, Su Lan emitted a shrill cry, as his right hand that he attacked with was forcefully shoved away from the rebound force that greater teleportation sent back to him. He was blasted far away before falling into the lake with a splash. Meanwhile, the defensive chi barrier on the surface of Duanling Tian's body shattered into pieces. Duanling Tian's face flushed red because although he had the defensive chi barrier to protect his body, Su Lan's palm strike that utilized the strength of 12 ancient mammoths wasn't that easy to withstand, so there was still a portion of the force that descended onto his body. Luckily, the strength of his fleshly body's lifeblood far exceeded that of any ordinary martial artist. Even if he had exerted the strength of 13 ancient mammoths to form a defensive chi barrier, his internal organs would still be injured by the shock from Su Lan's palm strike. Defensive martial skills were capable of completely neutralizing similar stage defensive martial skills, but this only applied to lower-level martial artists. Once one achieved the 9th level of the core formation stage, the defensive chi barrier wasn't as effective anymore. Including Third Prince and the old man behind him, everyone present couldn't stop themselves from exclaiming, "Star Shift!" They were able to discern that the defensive martial skill that Duanling Tian executed was precisely the strongest defensive martial skill of the Shao clan, Star Shift. They were slightly dazed. How could Duanling Tian possess Star Shift, which was a skill that the Shao clan would never pass on to someone not of their surname? Su Lan's entire arm was broken off, and his body was trembling. He stood firmly with great difficulty, but was still in an extremely sorry state. In the next moment, Su Lan's pupils constricted and his face went ghastly pale. He then emitted a bitter and shrill shout. No! He saw Duanling Tian move. The current him had absolutely no way of stopping Duanling Tian, as his most important right arm was crippled. Spirit Serpent Movement Technique. Before anyone came back to their senses from the previous shock, Duanling Tian instantly closed in on Su Lan. Dragon's Finishing Touch. Duanling Tian didn't even wave his hands to create any afterimages. He directly pointed out his finger, which emitted a sharp, whistling sound as it flashed towards Su Lan's chest. Su Lan's pupils constricted as he desperately circulated his defensive martial skill. A layer of defensive chi barrier appeared on the surface of his body. Defensive chi barrier? Does it make a difference? A sneer appeared on the corners of Duanling Tian's mouth as his finger descended. It was accompanied by an awe-inspiring gale, pressing itself onto the defensive chi barrier on Su Lan's chest. It indeed faced quite a degree of resistance. However, Duanling Tian once again exerted strength, and his finger pierced through the defensive chi barrier before directly pressing onto the place where Su Lan's heart resided. A terrifying force flowed into Su Lan's body, instantly shattering his heart. Bang! Su Lan's body trembled and his eyes opened wide before he fell limply onto the ground. Su Lan's body lied on the ground. At the place where his arm broke off, blood flowed out like a fountain, dazzling and resplendent. Heh, I told you. One must know one's limitations. Duanling Tian squatted down and extended his hands to close Su Lan's eyes, which were unable to close after death, and intentionally sighed before standing up once more. He looked towards the group of young talents that had long been scared to the point that their faces were ghastly pale. Now, who's next? Duanling Tian's frosty gaze swept these so-called young talents one by one. Instantly, the group of young men looked at each other, but there wasn't a single person who dared stand out, as they'd all witnessed Duanling Tian's strength. Before this fight, they thought that Duanling Tian relied on his grade 7 spirit weapon to achieve such a strength before, but now they understood that even without a spirit weapon, Duanling Tian wasn't in existence an ordinary 9th level core formation martial artist could defeat. They were all filled with fear as they gazed upon Su Lan's corpse. They felt lucky that they didn't move out to challenge Duanling Tian before Su Lan. Otherwise, the one that was dead would surely be one of them. Third Prince, how about it? Duanling Tian swept the group of young talents with a disdainful gaze before moving his gaze to descend onto the third prince. Although the third prince still had a smile on his face, his smile was extremely unnatural. Never had I imagined that Brother Ling Tian actually cultivated the Shao clan star shift. However, it's up to my sister if she's willing to stroll around the lake with you. Third prince doesn't have to worry about this. Duanling Tian smiled indifferently, then his body moved like a gust of wind to float to Princess Bai Yao's side. He extended his hand, grabbed Princess Bai Yao's tender hand, and held onto it. Princess Bai Yao's delicate figure trembled as if she were being electrified, and her cheeks blushed. It was the first time in her life that her hand was held in such a way. Princess, how about accompanying me for a stroll? Duanling Tian nodded to Princess Bai Yao and lightly smiled. Princess Bai Yao lightly nodded with an embarrassed expression. The smile on third prince's face vanished when he saw Duanling Tian holding Princess Bai Yao's hand and leaving in such a way. It was as if Duanling Tian was demonstrating his dominance to him. Third prince took a deep breath, then he glanced coldly and indifferently at the remaining young talents, and indifferently said, "Everyone, tonight's banquet will conclude now. Leave." When the group of young men noticed the suppressed fury of the third prince, they respectfully replied before turning around and leaving. Duanling Tian released Princess Bai Yao's hand after walking out of the building at the heart of the lake and laughed apologetically. "Princess, I'm sorry for the offense." Princess Bai Yao's heart trembled. Even she didn't know why she actually felt a slight sense of loss in her heart when Duanling Tian released her hand. "It's all right." Princess Bai Yao lightly shook her head, and her cheeks blushed. The perfect couple of youth and young woman casually strolled slowly around the man-made lake. "I apologize in my third brother's stead for today's matters. Third brother wasn't always like this. Even I don't know why he would target you like that." Princess Bai Yao lightly sighed. The corners of Duanling Tian's mouth curled at an angle, as even he didn't know why the third prince would target him in such a way. How could he have known that the third prince was prone to suspicion? When the third prince witnessed how unfathomable Duanling Tian was and felt that he was unable to control Duanling Tian, the third prince unconsciously considered Duanling Tian a threat and wanted to get rid of him. Sometimes, as a member of the imperial family, it was just such a simple reason for wanting to get rid of someone, and it didn't require any real reason. Subsequently, the two of them didn't talk as they quietly strolled around the man-made lake. "Okay, princess, it's time I take my leave." Duan Ling Tian nodded with a smile to Princess Bai Yao. He had a favorable impressions of this kind-hearted young girl. Okay. Princess Bai Yao lightly nodded before asking, will we meet again in the future? There'll be a chance. Duan Ling Tian nodded before turning and leaving. Princess Bai Yao heaved a sigh of relief before faintly sighing as she watched Duan Ling Tian's figure slowly disappear into the distance. Bai Yao, you can't like him. At some point, a figure appeared beside Princess Bai Yao. Third brother, why? Princess Bai Yao looked at Third Prince with a pair of eyes that had a trace of unwillingness within. He isn't suitable for you. Third Prince's answer was extremely simple. Not suitable? A trace of bitterness appeared on the corners of Princess Bai Yao's mouth, and she shook her head and said, in a slightly chilly voice, thank you, third brother, for the great hospitality. I'll be returning to the Imperial Palace tomorrow morning. I hope third brother can make the preparations for me. Third Prince frowned, as he noticed that this sister of his probably really had feelings for that youth. Uncle Hu, do it cleanly. I don't wish to have any remaining future troubles. Suddenly, Third Prince spoke as if he was talking to the air.
Yes.
An old voice abruptly sounded, and at the same time, an aged figure that was concealed under the darkness of the night vanished. After leaving the Third Prince's estate, Duan Ling Tian headed towards his own house. I never imagined that my charms were still so great. The corners of Duan Ling Tian's mouth curled into a self-ridiculing smile. He naturally noticed the feelings that Princess Bai Yao's gaze emitted when she looked at him, but he didn't have any other intentions towards Princess Bai Yao. Maybe it was because of a prejudiced first impression due to Princess Bai Yao's complicated identity, or maybe it was because of the two girls at home. Let fate decide. Duan Ling Tian shook his head and didn't think about it anymore. After spending half an hour, Duan Ling Tian had already walked half the journey. He was currently using a shortcut and entered a deserted, small alley. Suddenly, Duan Ling Tian noticed the two little pythons in his sleeve become slightly restless. Instantly, Duan Ling Tian stopped his footsteps and put a vigilant expression on his face. Just at this moment, his formidable spiritual force vaguely noticed that there seemed to be a pair of eyes staring at him from the shadows. Who? Duan Ling Tian's expression couldn't help but turn grim. Not bad. A mere 9th level core formation martial artist is able to notice my presence. Needless to say, you're extremely special. A hoarse voice sounded from the other side of the small alley, and under the moonlight, the old man appeared before Duan Ling Tian. It's you. Duan Ling Tian's face went grim. The old man that presently stood before him. Wasn't he that old man that was standing behind Third Prince tonight? If I'm not wrong, there should be some secrets on you. Even my origin energy condensed into sound was actually unable to injure you. It's truly strange. The old man slowly walked closed, and his eyes flickered brightly, emitting a strange gleam. Third Prince sent you? Duan Ling Tian took a deep breath. Relying on Rebirth Martial Emperor's experience and his spiritual force, which was comparable to a nascent soul martial artist's, he could slightly discern the old man's cultivation level. Although this old man was inferior to the Divine Might Marquis, Yuan, he still was no easy opponent, as he was at least a 7th level nascent soul martial artist, and even might be at the 8th level of the nascent soul stage. The old man didn't answer Duan Ling Tian, but instead continued to walk closer slowly. I want to know the reason. Duan Ling Tian's eyes flickered with a fierce gaze, and his tone was suppressed to an extremely low tone. The reason is, you showed off your ability too much and caused His Highness to feel threatened. Besides that, you shouldn't have been disrespectful to the princess. The old man's voice sounded like it was coming from the pits of hell, and it emitted a bone-piercing coldness. Showed off his ability too much? Shouldn't have been disrespectful to the princess? This could be a reason? Duan Ling Tian's face sank. Did the third prince treat people's lives like grass? Before this, although he knew that the third prince might not be fond of him, he never expected that the third prince would want his life. A slight expression of rage appeared on Duan Ling Tian's face. Subsequently, Duan Ling Tian's icy cold gaze descended upon the old man as he said, in a cold voice, I'll give you a chance. Retreat now. or else you will die for sure. Duan Ling Tian had 2 bone corrosion inscriptions. These were powerful enough to annihilate nascent soul martial artists, but he wasn't willing to waste one here. That would cost a few million silver. Even if he were to only use one, it would still cause him a heartache for a long time. So he gave the old man a chance. If the old man wasn't sensible, then even if it caused him a heartache, for the sake of the safety of his life, he would still use the bone corrosion inscription and annihilate the old man. He could still earn more money once it was gone, but he wouldn't have anything if he lost his life. Shameless boasting. Let me see how you take my life. The old man sneered, as he obviously didn't take any heed of Duan Ling Tian's word. He only thought that Duan Ling Tian was intentionally mystifying himself to delay some time. Abruptly, the old man moved with a speed like a bolt of lightning, and his hand attacked like a gust of wind, seeming to transform into a giant rock that flashed towards Duan Ling Tian. Duan Ling Tian only felt an extremely formidable, imposing manner sweep over, suppressing him to the point that he couldn't catch his breath and nearly suffocated. He could vaguely see 1,100 ancient mammoth silhouettes condensing into form above the old man. 8th level of the nascent soul stage. Duan Ling Tian's face sank. Bang! The old man slapped out his palm from a distance, and his origin energy slowly condensed as a palm seal condensed into form. Humph! Since you want to court death, then I'll grant your wish. Duan Ling Tian grunted coldly. His hand flashed over his waist, then his violet myrtle flexible sword whistled out. At the instant the old man's palm seal condensed fully into form, Duan Ling Tian activated the bone corrosion inscription on his violet myrtle flexible sword as well. OM. Instantly, a strand of a gray-colored flowing light jumped about atop the blade of the violet myrtle flexible sword, and the flowing light was as swift as a bolt of lightning when it flashed out. No! The old man's pupils constricted, and at the instant he reacted, the gray-colored flowing light had pierced into his body. Instantly. Ah! The old man's shrill and sad cry sounded, and even Duan Ling Tian couldn't help but feel a chill run down his spine as he heard it. This bone corrosion inscription was really too overbearing. In the next moment, the old man's shrill cries stopped dead in their tracks. His body trembled and the origin energy within his entire body dissipated. Not only that, the old man's body seemed to abruptly turn into a pile of mud and instantly collapsed. The bones inside his body were completely corroded and had transformed into nothingness. Even Duan Ling Tian, who had killed many people, still felt nauseous at this moment. It was the first time he had seen such a method of death, a death comparable to the bones of the entire body turning into ashes, and only the flesh and skin remained. Swoosh! Duan Ling Tian was unwilling to take another glance, so he directly lit up some pill fire and burned the old man's corpse that was too horrible to look at to ashes. In the end, Duan Ling Tian found the old man's spatial ring from within the pile of ashes, and only then did he leave. On the way, Duan Ling Tian claimed ownership over the spatial ring. F***K. When Duan Ling Tian saw the contents of the spatial ring, his face flushed red, and he couldn't stop himself from swearing. Within the spatial ring was a pile of neatly arranged silver, and most of them were silver bills of the 10,000 denomination. Duan Ling Tian roughly counted for a moment, and came to the conclusion that the pile of silver within the spatial ring had a combined sum of at least 70 or 80 million. He couldn't have been the manager of the third prince's estate, right? Duan Ling Tian's heart was filled with wild joy as he guessed. Third prince, you've sent such a generous gift to me this time. Duan Ling Tian's face was suffused with a smile. Luckily, this old fellow wasn't scared off by me. Otherwise, I would have brushed by this 70 or 80 million silver. As he recalled what happened earlier, Duan Ling Tian had a slight lingering fear in his heart. It could be imagined that if the old man knew of Duan Ling Tian's current thoughts, he wouldn't be able to rest in peace even on the road to hell. A bone corrosion inscription would at most be worth over 3 million silver. Today's deal was truly a huge profit. Duan Ling Tian beamed on the way home. Over 3 million silver in exchange for 70 or 80 million silver. The profit was so considerable that it would be nearly impossible to come by again. That Duan Rulei manages many businesses under the Duan clan, so he probably has a shocking sum of wealth in his possession. If he isn't sensible and comes looking for trouble with me, then don't blame me for being ruthless. A sneer appeared on the corners of Duan Ling Tian's mouth, and a trace of greed arose within his eyes. Today's matter had undoubtedly allowed him to have a taste of the benefits. That fifth prince as well. His estate manager will certainly have quite a sum of money, right? As he muttered to himself, Duan Ling Tian noticed that he had arrived at his house gate. Because he had notified them beforehand, the three beauties in his house weren't that worried about Duan Ling Tian. However, after Duan Ling Tian returned, the two girls still gathered together with faces full of curious expressions and asked him about what happened during tonight's banquet. Duan Ling Tian naturally wouldn't tell them the truth. Otherwise, they would start worrying again. Moreover, if he were to mention Princess Bai Yao, little Fei would surely start getting jealous again. Deep into the night, Duan Ling Tian summoned Xiong Quan over and passed a pile of silver to him. Take this 50 million silver and buy as much of those materials I asked you to buy the other time as you can, Duan Ling Tian ordered. 50 million silver? Xiong Quan was stunned. Where did the young master get so much money from? However, he was a smart man, so he didn't ask. He respectfully put the silver away and said, "Yes, young master." When Duan Ling Tian returned to his room, he used up the last portion of materials Xiong Quan had purchased last time and once again inscribed a bone corrosion inscription atop his violet myrtle flexible sword. It could be said that he had experienced the might of the bone corrosion inscription today. Even the old man beside the third prince, in existence at the 8th level of the nascent soul stage, didn't even have the time to react before he was hit, and the bones in his entire body turned to ashes. He was completely and utterly dead. The bone corrosion inscription was a life-saving talisman to Duan Ling Tian. He could imagine how he would have been killed by that old man if he didn't have the bone corrosion inscription. Third prince, I, Duan Ling Tian, will remember the gift you gave me today. Duan Ling Tian's eyes flashed with a cold light. After easing himself up, Duan Ling Tian cultivated the 9 Dragons War Sovereign Technique's Raging Python form until deep into the night before going to sleep. At morning the next day, Duan Ling Tian attended classes in the Star Mastermind Department's classroom as usual. During the class, someone came to see Sima Changfeng, and after going out for a while, Sima Changfeng returned. He looked at Duan Ling Tian with a strange expression. Duan Ling Tian, come out with me for a moment. Although Duan Ling Tian thought it was weird, he still followed Sima Changfeng out. Teacher, did you call me out here for something? Duan Ling Tian questioned. Someone wants to see you, Sima Changfeng said. Just when Duan Ling Tian was wondering who wanted to see him, Sima Changfeng had already brought him to an empty area at the corner of Paladin Academy, and there was a luxurious carriage stopped there. 2 old men were standing at each side of the carriage. Relying on the experiences of Rebirth Martial Emperor and his own formidable spiritual force, Duan Ling Tian could determine that the strength of these 2 old men were not one bit inferior to the old man he killed with the bone corrosion inscription last night. Go ahead. Sima Changfeng nodded to Duan Ling Tian. I'll wait for you here. Duan Ling Tian curiously walked over, and he was stunned once he entered the carriage. The person who sat within the carriage was none other than the third prince, who he'd just seen yesterday. However, after a night's time, the third prince didn't have a face full of smiles like yesterday. He now had a gloomy expression. Third prince, are you looking for me? Duan Ling Tian wasn't courteous at all. He directly sat down within the carriage, and his brows knitted. Duan Ling Tian, us honest people are straightforward and don't beat around the bush. Last night, uncle who didn't return after he left. Was he killed by your people? The third prince looked at Duan Ling Tian with an electric gaze. He stared fixedly at Duan Ling Tian, watching for any change on Duan Ling Tian's face, as if he was extremely afraid of missing the slightest twitch. Duan Ling Tian had a face full of surprise and bewilderment when he heard what the third prince said. Third prince, whose uncle who? Third prince frowned. He had been observing the changes in Duan Ling Tian's expression the whole time, but he noticed that there was nothing amiss in Duan Ling Tian's expression, when he mentioned the matter of Uncle Hu. Could it be that it really had nothing to do with Duan Ling Tian? But that's impossible. Yesterday, he sent Uncle Hu to kill Duan Ling Tian. However, Uncle Hu never returned. It was as if he had vanished into thin air. If it was just Uncle Hu who disappeared, it would only be the loss of an 8th-level nascent soul martial artist, and it would only cause him a short period of heartache. But Uncle Hu had another identity. He was the manager of his estate, and thus controlled his private wealth. The thing he was urgently seeking now was precisely the spatial ring on Uncle Hu's hand. If that spatial ring was gone, then it would also mean that his 70 or 80 million silver had gone down the drain, and his future days would become difficult. Even though he was a prince, the expenses of his own estate were paid out of his own pocket. Moreover, if he wanted to get more support to obtain the seat of emperor in the future, he would require usage of that wealth to obtain connections and bribe officials. Duan Ling Tian had a surprised expression when he curiously asked, "Third Prince, why is your expression so unsightly? Has something happened?" Duan Ling Tian, it doesn't matter if you've killed Uncle Hu. I can disregard it, but you must hand over Uncle Hu's spatial ring, or else you should know the consequences. The third prince's expression went gloomy as he finished speaking. He still wanted to gamble and probe if that spatial ring was in Duan Ling Tian's hands or not. "Third prince, what's the meaning of this? Someone from your estate died, and you blame it on me?" Duan Ling Tian's face sank, and he burst into a rage. "As for whatever spatial ring you speak of, I know nothing of it. Farewell." Duan Ling Tian didn't look back and walked out of the carriage. He left as soon as he finished speaking. The third prince's expression was incomparably unsightly. It really wasn't him? Then who the heck was it? Uncle Hu was his trusted follower, and he was confident that if it wasn't for something happening to Uncle Hu, he would absolutely not vanish on him. "Once I find out who did it, not matter who it is, I'll bury him in a shallow grave." The third prince, who usually seemed easily approachable, now had a savage expression on his face. It was as if he had transformed into a devil. Before long, the third prince's luxurious carriage left under the gazes of Duan Ling Tian and Sima Changfeng. "Duan Ling Tian, what did third prince look for you for?" Sima Changfeng asked curiously. "I don't know either. He just told me that his estate's Uncle Hu died, and something about a spatial ring. Baffling." Duan Ling Tian shrugged with an innocent expression. It wasn't unexpected to him that the third prince would look for him, but he never expected that the third prince would come so fast. It looked like that silver was a huge amount even for the third prince, even to the extent it had an extraordinary meaning. Uncle Hu? Spatial ring? Sima Changfeng was dazed for a moment before deducing the possibilities. "According to my knowledge, the manager of the third prince's estate is called Hu San. Could it be that Hu San is dead? Hu San is the individual that the third prince trusts the most, and he even controls the wealth of the third prince's estate. Could it be that Hu San's dead, and the spatial ring that contained the wealth of the third prince's estate vanished with him?" Duan Ling Tian's eyes were wide open. He intentionally acted surprised as he spoke. "That's probably it. Keep this matter to yourself. Under no circumstances should you spread it. Otherwise, it would provoke unnecessary troubles. That third prince isn't someone to be trifled with lightly." Sima Changfeng had a serious expression as he warned Duan Ling Tian. "Understood, teacher." Duan Ling Tian hurriedly nodded, as a bright light flashed within his eyes. The third prince was naturally not someone who should be trifled with lightly. This was something he experiences during the banquet last night. In fact, at the moment he saw the third prince today, he guessed the reason the third prince had come. He had taken notice of the burning gaze the third prince shot at him when he abruptly mentioned that the death of Hu San was connected to him. He naturally was able to guess the third prince's goal. It was nothing more than trying to probe him and see if he was really connected to the disappearance of Hu San. But unfortunately, the third prince was making a futile effort in trying to make him slip up. As a weapons specialist in his previous life, how could he possibly fall for such a poor attempt? Duan Ling Tian couldn't help but laugh to himself when he recalled what the third prince said in the end. The third prince actually wanted him to spit out what he had already ate? Was that possible? Duan Ling Tian followed Sima Chong Feng back to the classroom and continued to attend the class. At noon, after class ended, Xiao Yu and Xiao Sun walked over. Duan Ling Tian, what did teacher Sima call you out for? Duan Ling Tian shook his head and smiled. Nothing. He just told me that a war might break out at the northwest border at any time, and asked me if I'm interested in going if the Paladin Academy Star Mastermind Department wants to send students over. Duan Ling Tian spoke of the things which Sima Chong Feng told him 10 days ago, using it as an excuse. Xiao Yu and Xiao Sun, however, believed it to be true, and Xiao Sun sighed. Logically speaking, if Paladin Academy really needs to send students, it would usually be grade 3 and above students that would have the opportunity to head over. Teacher Sima asking you this undoubtedly means that he plans to put his all in recommending you to go. Maybe. Duan Ling Tian nodded. Xiao Yu thought about yesterday's matter and jokingly asked, Duan Ling Tian, did you gain anything from attending the third prince's banquet yesterday? That third prince probably spent a great deal of effort in trying to rope you into his side, right? Spent great efforts to rope me in? Duan Ling Tian's expression was slightly unnatural. That third prince wished for nothing more than his death. Why would he still rope him in? However, he naturally wouldn't say it, and he lightly smiled. The biggest gain from yesterday was probably meeting the number 1 beauty of the Imperial City. The Imperial City's number 1 beauty? Xiao Yu's and Xiao Sun's gaze is shown. You met Princess Bai Yao? Duan Ling Tian nodded. If I knew earlier, I would have followed you and joined in on the fun. Xiao Yu had a regretful expression. You really want to go join in the fun? Looks like when I see little Qin again, I'll have to tell her about this. An evil smile appeared on the corners of Duan Ling Tian's mouth. The little Qin he mentioned was precisely Luo Cheng's sister, Luo Qian. Xiao Yu rolled his eyes at Duan Ling Tian before asking curiously, how was it? Was that Princess Bai Yao beautiful? Duan Ling Tian nodded. She's worthy of her reputation. In terms of looks, she isn't inferior to your sister. Xiao Yu was slightly moved. The looks of his sister, Xiao Lan, was something he was aware of, and she was absolutely an unsurpassed beauty. What? Xiao Yu, your sister is actually a beauty that can be compared to Princess Bai Yao? Xiao Sun's eyes shone as if he had transformed into a hungry wolf. Xiao Sun, don't have any ideas about my sister. She already has someone in her heart. Xiao Yu shook his head and smiled. That isn't a problem. I'll surely prove to her that I'm 10 times, 100 times stronger than the person in her heart. As far as Xiao Sun was concerned, the person Xiao Yu's sister had taken a fancy to was probably someone from Aurora City. In terms of natural talent, strength, and background, the other person had no way of comparing to him. As a direct descendant of the Imperial City Xiao clan, Xiao Sun was extremely confident in this aspect. Are you sure you're 10 times, 100 times stronger than that person? Xiao Yu's gaze became slightly strange. What? Besides Duan Ling Tian and you, there's another freak from Aurora City? Xiao Sun's heart jerked as he asked curiously. Xiao Yu shook his head. Then you mean? Xiao Sun hadn't finished speaking when he noticed Xiao Yu neither intentionally nor unintentionally glancing at Duan Ling Tian. Xiao Sun jolted, and a bitter smile unconsciously appeared on the corners of his mouth when he reacted. It couldn't be, right? The person Xiao Yu's sister had taken a fancy to was Duan Ling Tian? If it was someone else, he might have the confidence to compete. But if it was Duan Ling Tian, he knew his limitations. He was miles away from Duan Ling Tian, and to compare himself to Duan Ling Tian would be akin to bringing unhappiness onto himself. What are you two looking at me for? Duan Ling Tian was still pondering about the matter with the third prince, and when he came back to his senses, he noticed Xiao Yu and Xiao Sun both staring at him. Is there something on my face? Duan Ling Tian had obviously not heard the conversation between Xiao Yu and Xiao Sun earlier. No. Xiao Sun shook his head with a smile. Let's go get some food. Duan Ling Tian's group of 3 arrived at the cafeteria and waited for some time. Even after their food had arrived, Su Li and Tian who were still nowhere to be found. Why are they so late today? Xiao Sun had a bewildered expression. He thought this was strange. Something couldn't have happened, right? Duan Ling Tian's brows lightly frowned, as Su Li and Tian, who had always been on time and had never once been so late before. He felt like something wasn't right, and his heart rose to his throat. Duan Ling Tian. Just at this moment, a slightly anxious and alarmed cry sounded from outside the cafeteria, and it slowly moved closer. It's Tian Hu. Why is it only him? Duan Ling Tian recognized the person in the distance with just a glance, and his brows knitted before flashing out to greet him. In next to no time, Duan Ling Tian arrived before Tian Hu and noticed that Tian Hu's expression was extremely unsightly. His heart jerked as he felt a bad premonition arise within it, and he hurriedly asked, Tian Hu, where's Su Li? Meanwhile, Xiao Yu and Xiao Sun had caught up. Su Li. A bitter and helpless smile appeared on the corners of Tian Hu's mouth when he heard Duan Ling Tian's questions. He's been surrounded by those Su clan members. Su clan members? Could it be that Su Li was related to the Imperial City Su clan? Duan Ling Tian's face sank as if he was being covered by a layer of ice. Let's go. While Duan Ling Tian's group of 3 were led by Tian Hu through the road towards the bamboo forest behind Paladin Academy. Within the quiet forest, Su Li lied there in an extremely listless state. He had obviously been injured quite heavily. Now it was difficult for him to even stand, but even then, Su Li's gaze still contained a trace of coldness, and he had never once loosened his grip on the 3-foot-long blade in his hand. Su Li's heart was firm as a rock, and even if he were to be humiliated, he would still be firm and unyielding. Before Su Li stood 3 young men. The young man in the lead was wearing embroidered clothes and was around the age of 25. His foot was currently on Su Li's sword hand, and a sneer appeared on his face. What? It's already come to this, and you're still unwilling to let go of your sword? Su Li, you're trash just like your father. It would be fine if you had obediently stayed in the countryside, but you had to return to the Imperial City and even appear before me. Aren't you courting death? What? Still glaring at me? Have you not resigned to your fate? The young man in embroidered clothes got angry when he noticed Su Li's cold gaze, and he raised his foot to kick Su Li's face. Instantly, fresh blood burst out from Su Li's face. It looked like a brilliant rose that was dazzling to the eye. Su Tong, 10 years? I'll surely kill you within 10 years. The corners of Su Li's mouth flashed with a trace of coldness, and his frosty voice emitted a coldness that seemed like it came from the depths of hell. But Su Li's voice was mixed with infinite confidence. 10 years? The young man in embroidered clothes was dazed for a moment before he started laughing, and an evil smile appeared on the corners of his mouth. Su Li, do you think you can defeat me 10 years from now? Although I'm not afraid of you, you've really reminded me. I'm indeed unable to kill you inside Paladin Academy. However, I'm really curious. If I were to cripple your Dantian, then 10 years from now, how would you kill me? What would you rely on to kill me? Now I'll destroy all of your hopes. After he finished speaking, the young man in embroidered clothes seemed to become more amused the more he thought of it, and he was just about to raise his leg and give Su Li's Dantian that last strike. Su Li's pupils constricted, and a strand of despair could be vaguely noticed from within his eyes. If his Dantian really were to be crippled, then it would also mean that his entire life would be ruined. No. Su Li's heart was filled with unwillingness. Su Li's breathing became hurried when he saw the young man in embroidered clothes raise his legs. He wanted to struggle, but he noticed that his body was powerless and he had no way of dodging. Just at this moment, Clan Brother, that companion of Su Li's, is back, and he brought 3 people with him. 2 of them seemed to be that Duan Ling Tian and the Xiao clan's Xiao Sun. One of the young men behind Su Tong noticed the 4 figures flying over. Duan Ling Tian? Xiao Sun? The corners of Su Tong's mouth curled into a sneer, and his gaze descended far off into the distance at the 4 people who approached aggressively as he muttered to himself, "He came in the end?" Su Li. Tian, who had only just arrived when he noticed Su Li's miserable condition, and his face went grim as he pounced over. Whoosh! Just at this moment, one of the young men behind Su Tong moved out. He kicked with a speed like a bolt of lightning and sent Tian Hu flying. 12 ancient mammoth silhouettes were indistinctly visible above the young man. Ninth level of the core formation stage. Bang! Tian, who fiercely crashed on the floor and spat out a mouthful of blood. His face was ghastly pale. Tian, who? Xiao Yu's face went grim and his eyes were filled with rage. Su Tong, it's you. Xiao Sun's gaze, however, descended onto the young man wearing embroidered clothes in the lead, and his face sank. Xiao Sun, don't dabble in these muddy waters. Scram! Su Tong's cold and indifferent voice sounded, and his gaze then descended upon the violet-clothed youth beside Xiao Sun. You can leave today, but this Duanling Tian must stay. When he noticed Su Li's miserable state, Duanling Tian's expression became extremely unsightly. Su Li was his friend. When he saw Tian who being kicked, a malicious flame burnt into being within him, and just when he felt it slightly difficult to suppress the rage within his heart, he heard the abrupt words of the young man in the lead. You want me to stay? Duanling Tian's eyes flickered, and he focused his gaze on the embroidered-clothed young man, Su Tong. Could it be that this Su Tong's target wasn't Su Li, but him? Instantly, a cold feeling arose within his heart. Duanling Tian, go. Just at this moment, Su Li's frosty voice echoed out. He had obviously guessed something, and thus asked Duanling Tian to leave. Duanling Tian took a step forward, looked at Su Tong with an icy cold gaze, and spoke in a low voice. You did this to Su Li just to get me over here? He didn't listen to Su Li. If he were to leave now, then he wouldn't be Duanling Tian. Duanling Tian, needless to say, you're extremely intelligent. However, intelligent people usually don't live long. Su Tong glanced at Duanling Tian with a slightly astonished expression. A smile appeared on the corners of his mouth as he spoke with a terrifyingly calm voice. Since you can guess my purpose, then you can probably guess why I'm here, right? What? The Su clan members can't lose a fight? Duanling Tian sneered. He did indeed guess it. If he had any involvement with the Su clan, then it would undoubtedly be the matter that occurred during the third prince's banquet last night. The Su Lan that died by his hand was precisely a Su Lan member. Can't lose a fight? Su Tong's face sank. Last night you used despicable methods to sneak attack Su Lan and killed him. You think you have the qualifications to say that the Su clan can't lose a fight? Despicable methods? Sneak attack? Duanling Tian's eyes went cold. Third prince, you're really atrocious. Duanling Tian could guess that all of this was surely something the third prince had orchestrated. At the side, Xiao Sun's heart jerked. Su Lan? Duanling Tian killed Su Lan? That disciple from the Su clan's branch clan with the highest natural talent, Su Lan? Su Tong's cousin? So what do you want? Duanling Tian took a deep breath as he looked at Su Tong with a burning gaze. His voice was extremely calm. Attacking so maliciously at such a young age? If it was up to me, your cultivation wouldn't be present in this world. Su Tong's gaze focused as he sneered. So in other words, you plan to cripple my cultivation? Duanling Tian started laughing out of anger. He laughed with a wide grin on his face, and a shocking luster moved about within his eyes. Xiao Sun and Xiao Yu's face went gloomy. Su Tong, Xiao Sun said coldly. You better not forget that he's the son of Duan Rufeng, a direct descendant of the Duan clan. If you dare cripple his cultivation, how would you give the Duan clan an explanation? The Duan clan? Su Tong started laughing and looked at Xiao Sun as if he were looking at an idiot. Xiao Sun, don't tell me you don't know that Duanling Tian refused the Duan clan. Now, Duanling Tian isn't a Duan clan member, so you don't have to bring this out to scare me. Su Tong was a distinguished direct descendant of the Su clan who will have the opportunity to compete for the position of patriarch in the future. His status within the Su clan was a decisive one. Thus, as far as he was concerned, as long as Duanling Tian hadn't returned to the Duan clan, not to mention crippling Duanling Tian's cultivation, even if he were to kill Duanling Tian, it wouldn't be a problem. You. Xiao Sun's face sank, as he had no means to refute. Even though he was a direct descendant of the Xiao clan, only ordinary people would be afraid of this identity. Su Tong wasn't afraid. Su Tong, the grandson of the Su clan's grand elder, was at the third level of the origin core stage at the age of 25. He was the individual with the highest natural talent in the Su clan's younger generation and was one of the candidates for the next Su clan patriarch. It could be said that Su Tong was born with a golden spoon in his mouth and had accumulated a myriad of favor for himself. Xiao Sun, if you're sensible, then hurry up and scram. If you don't, even if you're a direct descendant of the Xiao clan, I'll still make you bleed today. Su Tong's gaze went cold, and he spoke as if he feared nothing and in an extremely overbearing manner. Duan Ling Tian is my friend. Xiao Sun's face sank, and he looked fearlessly at Su Tong. Good, very good. Truly touching friendship. Su Tong started laughing without restraint, laughing arrogantly and in an unruly manner. In the next moment, whoosh, Su Tong's body moved. His speed rose to the limit as he flashed before Xiao Sun in the blink of an eye. Bang! Instantly, Xiao Sun's body was blasted away by Su Tong before fiercely dropping onto the ground. Above Su Tong, 40 ancient mammoth silhouettes flashed before disappearing instantly. Third level of the origin core stage? Duan Ling Tian expression became even gloomier, and his frosty gaze descended upon Su Tong, seeming to be able to swallow him alive. Su Tong. Duan Ling Tian's expression was gloomy as he spoke in a low voice that was mixed with a breathtaking icy coldness from the depths of hell. Su Li, Tian Hu, and Xiao Sun were injured one after the other. The rage within his heart had accumulated to the brink of explosion. Su Tong withdrew his cold and fierce gaze from Xiao Sun and moved it onto Duan Ling Tian. A strand of mischief jumped about within his gaze. What? Angry already? Can't take it anymore? As he spoke up to this point, Su Tong's tone changed and brought coldness with it. Then when you used despicable means to sneak attack my cousin, Su Lan, and killed him, did you ever think of his parents' feelings? Today, I won't kill you. I'll only cripple your cultivation. In the future, if you appear before me again, I'll surely kill you. The corners of Duan Ling Tian's mouth slightly trembled, then a cold smile appeared on it. You want to cripple my cultivation? Then it will depend on if you have the capability or not. Presently, Duan Ling Tian's reason had completely been suppressed by his rage. He took a step forward with an imposing manner that shot through the sky. As for the matter with Su Lan, he didn't care to explain. Grab him, Su Tong abruptly ordered. Whoosh, whoosh. Instantly, the two young men behind Su Tong flew out and rushed towards Duan Ling Tian. These two people were both 9th level core formation martial artists. They pounced at Duan Ling Tian in full fury and approached from both sides. They extended their hands with the intention of grabbing onto Duan Ling Tian's shoulder and causing Duan Ling Tian to be unable to move. You're courting death. Faced with the two people who flashed towards him, Duan Ling Tian's gaze went slightly cold and his hand descended onto the violet myrtle flexible sword on his waist. Then he took a step forward and moved to intercept the two people. Suddenly, sword drawing arts. Duan Ling Tian made his move. 15 ancient mammoth silhouettes condensed into form above him. A dazzling, violet sword light seemed to have eyes as it moved like a shadow and flashed past the sky with peerless sharpness. At the same time, accompanied by two dazzling and resplendent red roses that bloomed in the air, two shrill cries echoed in tow. Bang! Bang! Two severed arms from two different people crashed onto the floor. The two young men who approached in full fury just a moment ago now had ghastly pale expressions. They retreated to a side after stopping the blood at the spot their arms were severed, and they looked at Duan Ling Tian with dreadful gazes. Never had they imagined that Duan Ling Tian would still resist even when it had come to this. Cold sweat dripped out of their foreheads and sadness appeared within their eyes as they gazed at the two arms beneath Duan Ling Tian's feet. If Duan Ling Tian knew of the thoughts of these two people, he would surely laugh in disdain. Not resist? Waiting for death? You. Even Su Tong didn't expect Duan Ling Tian to actually dare to sever the arms of those two Su clan disciples, and for a moment his eyes glared widely, then his body started trembling in extreme fury. On Su Tong's body, origin energy ravaged, and 40 ancient mammoth silhouettes condensed into form above him. Duanling Tian, I originally thought that you were an intelligent person, but I didn't think you were actually so stupid. It's already come to this, and you actually dare to resist. Su Tong's cold voice seemed to sound from the mouth of an Azura, and mixed within was towering killing intent. You want to cripple my cultivation, and you don't even let me resist? Duanling Tian sneered. This Su Tong was really laughable. He wanted to cripple Duanling Tian's cultivation, but didn't allow him to resist? Could it be that he wanted Duanling Tian to stand on the spot and wait to be killed? Would there be any difference in the outcome whether you resist or not? Su Tong continued as he walked step by step towards Duanling Tian. He spoke with an extremely low voice. However, you daring to resist has completely enraged me, and I've now changed my mind. I can't kill you inside Paladin Academy, so I'll cripple your cultivation. When you leave Paladin Academy, you will lose your life. Duanling Tian didn't have a shred of fear as he watched Su Tong walk over, and his eyes flashed with a strange light. Then it depends on if you have the capability. What? Do you think that with your 9th level core formation stage cultivation and the grade 7 spirit weapon in your hand, you'll be able to go against the will of I, a 3rd level origin core martial artist? Su Tong's voice was filled with disdain. Even if you used your grade 7 spirit weapon, you would at most be able to exert the strength of 15 ancient mammoths. I, however, am at the 3rd level of the origin core stage, so even if I don't use a spirit weapon, I still have sufficient strength to exert the strength of 40 ancient mammoths. In front of me, your puny strength is like an ant. Su Tong said this word for word. It was as if he wanted to completely annihilate Duanling Tian's last shred of confidence. Heh. Looks like you're extremely confident of your strength. The corners of Duanling Tian's mouth curled into a nice angle as his sword-shaped brows raised and his eyes flashed with a strange light. You're still stubborn even at a time like this? Needless to say, your courage is really shocking. Meanwhile, Su Tong had already arrived nearby Duanling Tian, and his face was covered in a layer of ice. However, it's useless to rely solely on courage sometimes. You'll soon know how laughable your little courage is before formidable strength. I'm waiting to see. Duanling Tian's eyes flashed with streams of light as he looked at Su Tong with a calm gaze. Ignorant. An evil flame rose to life within Su Tong when he saw Duanling Tian still maintain his composure, and his eyes were suffused with killing intent. Whoosh! Su Tong took a step forward. A gust of wind howled out, blowing the dust on the ground to fill the air. Duanling Tian, I want to see whether you'll still be carefree like this when your Dantian is crippled, and you've become a cripple. Su Tong's voice became even more icy cold, and his fierce gaze seemed to be able to see through Duanling Tian. I'm curious as well. When you've become a cripple and recall this scene, will you feel that everything is just so laughable? Duanling Tian's eyes flashed with a cold light as he rebuked. He was unwilling to show weakness. You're courting death. Su Tong's rage had reached an extent that was difficult to suppress, and his body flashed out as if transforming into a gust of wind as he blew towards Duanling Tian. In the air, 40 ancient mammoth silhouettes dashed out in tow. Duanling Tian. Xiao Yu had just given Su Li, Tian Hu, and Xiao Sun gold injury pills when he saw this scene. His face went pale, and he was furious to the point that his eyes seemed like they were splitting. At this moment, he only hated himself for being too weak and unable to help Duanling Tian. Duanling Tian stood on the spot. His cold gaze focused onto Su Tong, who flashed directly towards him, and a cold smile appeared on the corners of his mouth. You want to cripple my Dantian? Then I'll let you try the feeling of having your Dantian crippled. Bang! Meanwhile, Su Tong had already arrived nearby Duanling Tian. He slammed out his fist that raged with origin energy. Then the origin energy condensed together and slammed towards Duanling Tian's Dantian. He obviously wanted to directly shatter Duanling Tian's Dantian. Su Tong's face emitted a cold smile. It was as if he had already seen the scene of Duanling Tian's Dantian being shattered. Whoosh! At almost the exact same time, Duanling Tian moved, and the violet myrtle flexible sword in his hand lightly trembled. A trace of disdain appeared on the corners of Su Tong's mouth when he saw this. A mere 9th level core formation martial artist. Even if Duan Ling Tian had a grade 7 spirit weapon, he would still disregard Duan Ling Tian. However, the disdain on the corners of his mouth completely froze before long, and his eyes opened wide as if he had seen something terrifying. OM. A bloody light flashed out of the blade of the violet myrtle flexible sword in Duan Ling Tian's hand and condensed into a blood crescent. The blood crescent was fast like a bolt of lightning as it moved to intercept Su Tong's fist strike that was condensed with origin energy. It was precisely the blood crescent inscription on the violet myrtle flexible sword. At this moment, Duan Ling Tian's eyes were filled with coldness. No! Accompanied by a sad and bitter cry, Su Tong's fist was pierced through by the blood crescent, bringing about a trace of dazzling fresh blood that formed a red rose in the air. The blood crescent's momentum didn't slow down and moved directly towards Su Tong's dantian. Pucci. It easily entered Su Tong's body and shattered his dantian. Ah! Su Tong's body trembled, and he abruptly shouted. The feeling of the origin energy in his dantian dissipating nearly caused him to forget the pain that was coming from his fist. Putong. Su Tong's legs went soft as he directly kneeled before Duan Ling Tian. No, no. Su Tong's eyes were open wide. He was dazed for a moment, and he continuously shook his head. He was slightly out of his wits, as he was unwilling to believe that all of this was real. You actually crippled my dantian. Su Tong looked at Duan Ling Tian with a pair of eyes that flickered with the luster of hatred. He never would have imagined that this Duan Ling Tian would possess such a terrifying offensive inscription that could not only break through his attack, but even pierce through his dantian. It caused the origin energy within his entire body to dissipate and make him into a complete and utter cripple. Duan Ling Tian had a calm expression when he saw this, and a light flashed within his eyes. Didn't you say that you wanted to cripple my dantian? Now, how do you feel? How's the feeling of becoming a cripple? Today, if it wasn't for him possessing a blood crescent inscription, Su Tong's fate would actually be his. This Su Tong was so cruel and merciless, wanting to cripple his dantian at every turn, so he gave him a taste of his own medicine. Su Tong's face flushed red. He got so angry from what Duan Ling Tian said that he spat out a mouthful of blood. Within his head, Duan Ling Tian's words from before reverberated. I'm curious as well. When you've become a cripple and recall this scene, will you feel that everything is just so laughable? So it turned out that this Duan Ling Tian had planned everything and was just waiting for him to charge over to use an offensive inscription to destroy his dantian. Yeah, now that he recalled it, it was indeed laughable. The Su clan won't let you off. Su Tong's body trembled from his agitated state of mind, and he fainted from the loss of blood. Clan brother. The expressions of the two Su clan disciples whose arms were severed by Duan Ling Tian went ghastly pale, and a trace of dread appeared within their eyes. They had never imagined that this Duan Ling Tian was so terrifying. Not only was his natural talent in the martial Tao heaven-defying, he even possessed offensive inscriptions that were sufficient to deal with origin core martial artists. Even within the entire domain of the Crimson Sky Kingdom, such an inscription was still extremely precious. In the distance, Su Li, Tian Hu, and Xiao Sun's injuries had only just slightly recovered, and they stood up with great difficulty with the support of Xiao Yu. However, when they saw what happened in the distance, they were completely dumbstruck. When Duan Ling Tian faced the third-level origin core Su Tong, they were practically in despair and felt that Duan Ling Tian's cultivation would surely be crippled by Su Tong. But the end result exceeded their expectations. They never would have imagined that Su Tong, who wanted to cripple Duan Ling Tian, would instead be crippled by Duan Ling Tian. What a mockery this was! However, now that they saw that Duan Ling Tian was safe and sound, they all heaved breaths of relief. Suddenly, Duan Ling Tian frowned and looked outside the bamboo forest. Presently, 3 extremely swift figures were flying over from afar. They arrived nearby in the blink of an eye. These were three middle-aged men, and Duan Tian only recognized one of them. Niu Mang, the grade 1 teacher of the Star General Department who was also the teacher for Su Li's and Tian Hu's class. As for the other two middle-aged men, one was a thickly built brawny man, and the other was a middle-aged scholar with graceful bearings. Just from their outer appearances, Duan Tian was able to guess which department's teachers they were. Su Tong. When the thickly built brawny man recognized Su Tong, who had fallen on the floor, his face became slightly grim. Without any hesitation, he walked swiftly over and helped Su Tong stop the fresh blood that was unceasingly pouring out from within him, and at the same time he gave Su Tong a gold injury pill. What's going on? The brawny man's thick eyebrows frowned. His tiger eyes gave of an imposing demeanor as his gaze focused onto Duan Tian. Duan Tian wasn't the least bit afraid when he met the brawny man's gaze, and he shrugged. It's actually nothing much. It's just that he wanted to cripple my cultivation, but in the end he wasn't successful. Just like that. The brawny man inspected Su Tong after he heard what Duan Tian said, and only now did he notice that Su Tong's dantian had actually been crippled. Instantly, his pupils couldn't help but constrict as he looked at the violet-clothed youth before him with a shocked expression. The casual expression on the youth's face struck terror in his heart. Kid, do you know what trouble you've gotten into? Teacher, according to my knowledge, the rules of Paladin Academy only disallows killing amongst student. Someone wanted to cripple my dantian, so I couldn't have restrained myself, done nothing, and waited for death, right? Duan Tian waved his hand as he laughed indifferently with a carefree expression. He didn't feel like he was in the wrong in today's matter. If it wasn't for Su Tong being overbearing and even viciously wanting to cripple his dantian, he wouldn't have been so ruthless. As far as he was concerned, Su Tong had absolutely brought this upon himself. The corners of the brawny man's mouth twitched when he saw Duan Tian's expression that was filled with innocence, as if he was harmless. Are you Duan Tian? Just at this moment, the gaze of the middle-aged scholar, who came with the brawny man, descended onto Duan Tian. Teacher. Duan Tian greeted the middle-aged scholar. The brawny man's gaze was slightly surprised. So you're Duan Tian. If today's matter is really as you said, then the academy will not blame you. However, it won't be so easy to talk it over with the Su clan. This Su Tong has an extremely high status within the Su clan, so you have to be mentally prepared. Thank you for the reminder, teacher. Duan Tian lightly nodded before expressing his gratitude. The brawny man glanced deeply at Duan Tian before looking at the two young men with severed arms. You two seem to be members of the Su clan, right? You two take Su Tong back. Besides that, take your severed arms with you. They should still be barely reattachable. Yes, teacher. The two young men with severed arms had bitter expressions as they grabbed their own severed arms before carrying Su Tong and leaving in dejection. Meanwhile, Niu Mang, who had heard the full story from Su Li and Tian Hu, walked over. I heard about what happened from my two students. The origin of the matter was that Su Tong and Duan Tian was only defending himself, so it has nothing to do with Duan Tian. The brawny man and middle-aged scholar both nodded when they heard this. Even though it's like this, we still have to report this matter to the vice dean. Indeed. The brawny man and middle-aged scholar glanced at Duan Tian before turning around and leaving. The two of them arrived swiftly and left swiftly. One might say they came and went like the wind. Teacher, I'll feel slightly nervous if you keep looking at me like that. Duan Tian noticed that Niu Mang was staring intently at him, causing a chill to run through him. This Niu Mang wouldn't have that sort of hobby, right? Niu Mang seemed to have realized the inappropriateness of his gaze. He laughed slyly and rubbed his fists together. Duan Tian, your natural talent in the martial Tao isn't bad. Being able to cultivate to the 9th level of the core formation stage at such a young age, in the future, if you become a general, you will surely be capable of slaughtering the enemies in all directions to boost the morale of friendly forces. Teacher, if you have something to say, then be frank about it. Duan Tian shook his head and laughed, as he perceived the meaning within Niu Mang's speech. Look, you have such a straightforward nature, and that's the nature of a general. Then I'll be frank. I want you to come to my Star General department. How about it? Niumang's eyes glowed with a face full of anticipation as he looked at Duanling Tian. As far as he was concerned, with Duanling Tian's natural talent in the martial Tao, he would surely be an expert when he matured. If such a figure were to come from him, his years of being a teacher in Paladin Academy wouldn't be in vain. Duanling Tian was put in a slightly awkward situation. He raised his head and seemed to have noticed something. Then his gaze flashed and a smile appeared on the corners of his mouth. Teacher Niumang, I think you should talk to Teacher Sima about this. Niumang noticed that the atmosphere was off as well. A middle-aged scholar with a silk headdress and a feather fan in his hand was standing behind Niumang and slowly said, Niumang, are you trying to poach my student? His pair of wise eyes descended onto Niumang. Sima. Niumang turned around and laughed embarrassedly when he saw Sima Changfeng. It's a joke. A joke? Duanling Tian, follow me. Sima Changfeng grunted coldly and paid no attention to Niumang. He called Duanling Tian and walked towards the deeper parts of the bamboo forest. You guys go have some food first. I'll come later, Duanling Tian said to Xiao Yu and the others before catching up to Sima Changfeng. You two kids have thrown away all the face of my Star General Department's Grade 1 class. As punishment, you two will be in charge of the teacher's lunch money today. You two don't have any objections, right? The sound of Niumang speaking with a sense of justice entered into his ears, causing the corners of Duanling Tian's mouth to twitch unconsciously. Following which was Tian Hu's voice. No objections, no objections. Sima Changfeng stopped his footsteps deep within the bamboo forest, and Duanling Tian stopped his footsteps as well. You were too rash in this matter. Sima Changfeng sighed. Obviously, he already knew the details of the entire matter. Teacher, what was rash? Duanling Tian didn't agree nor deny, but instead replied with a question. You better not make nothing of the matter. Since Su Tong didn't die, and you're in the right, Paladin Academy won't pursue today's matter. But do you know that Su Tong is the Su clan's direct descendant, and that he's been fostered by them? He's even one of the potential candidates for the next patriarch of the Su clan. You crippled Su Tong, and that's akin to giving the Su clan a slap in the face. The Su clan will absolutely not let this go. Sima Changfeng shook his head. In his eyes, this student of his was truly a fledgling who made little of a tiger and dared to do anything. Teacher, I understand what you mean. However, when a man lives in this world, there are things he must do and things he shouldn't do. To me, that's Su Tong repeatedly proclaiming that he wanted to cripple my Danton and even taking action to do so already crossed my bottom line. It was merciful of me that I didn't kill him. Duanling Tian's gaze focused and his face was extremely tranquil. As for the Su clan, if they really want to pursue the matter, then I'll take them on. When a man lives in this world, there are things he must do and things he shouldn't do. From savoring this simple line in detail, Sima Changfeng was able to realize the wildness and unruliness within Duanling Tian's words. At this instant, he felt Duanling Tian's confidence as well, and he glanced deeply at Duanling Tian. I never imagined that you'd see this matter through so thoroughly. I originally thought that you had only done this out of rashness. Since it's like this, then I won't say any more. Subsequently, Duanling Tian and Sima Changfeng left the bamboo forest, and their journey back was peaceful. The Su clan. Duanling Tian's gaze focused and a sneer appeared on the corners of his mouth. After returning to the cafeteria, Duanling Tian sat beside Xiao Yu and the others and ate together. During this time, Xiao Yu and the others naturally were bound to be worried for Duanling Tian. After all, the Su clan was a colossus to them, and it was difficult to go against them. Duanling Tian only brushed past it all with a laugh. He had a tranquil expression. It was as if he wasn't related to the matter, and it had nothing to do with him. The Su clan was one of the 3 great clans of the Imperial City and were equally as famous as the Duan clan and the Shao clan. Presently, within the audience hall of the Su clan, all the higher-ups of the Su clan were gathered here. A middle-aged man wearing a black robe with gold edges sat at the head. His back was straight like a spear, and an imposing demeanor was exuded from between his brows. He was precisely the patriarch of the Su clan, Su Boya. Su Boya was nearly 60 years old, and in another few years he would be considered to have stepped into old age. At that time, the seat of the Su clan patriarch would be passed on to the younger generation, and he would retire to help the newly appointed patriarch manage the clan from the shadows. Presently, the atmosphere within the audience hall seemed to be slightly oppressive, and a seat below Su Boya was empty at this moment. Suddenly, heavy footsteps sounded from outside the audience hall, and an aged figure walked in. This was an aged old man with a pair of murky eyes that flashed with bloodthirsty rage, and the aura on his body was restless. It was as if it would exploded forth at any moment. Before long, the old man sat at the empty seat below Su Boya. This seat was the seat of the Su clan's Grand Elder. The old man's identity was obvious. The Su clan's Grand Elder, Su Nan. Grand Elder, is there any hope of healing Su Tong's Dantian? Patriarch Su Boya spoke. His gaze descended upon Su Nan as he spoke with a voice that was mixed with a trace of anticipation. All of the Su clan elders present looked over at Su Nan with eyes that emitted a trace of hope. Patriarch, the Dantian of that grandson of mine had been almost completely shattered by an offensive inscription, so there's no way of saving him. He will probably be unable to accumulate origin energy again in his entire lifetime. Su Nan's tone was mixed with a breathtaking coldness. His son had died at a young age, and he had entrusted all of his hopes to his grandson, Su Tong. In these past few years, he had devoted all his attention to instruct and foster Su Tong. Su Tong didn't disappoint him. He became the disciple with the most outstanding natural talent in the younger generation of the Su clan. And in another few more years, if nothing unexpected were to happen, the seat of the Su clan patriarch would definitely be held by Su Tong. Just when the life of his grandson was about to greet its greatest glory, his grandson's Dantian was crippled by another, and his grandson's entire cultivation was crippled.
Thank you for watching. I hope you enjoyed today's episode. If you did, please like, share, and subscribe.